Hello and welcome to another episode of the Northern Art Podcast with me, Ant Cosgrove. Hope you are all doing very well indeed. I've been to various exhibitions since the last episode, including the Maurice Wade show in Stoke, which was discussed in the last podcast with Andy McCluskey. That episode, by the way, was listened to by people all over the world and was just brilliant to do, so if you haven't listened to it already, please check it out. I went back to Stoke a couple of weeks ago for the talk by Peter Davies on the Keel Arts collection. I also checked out the Potteries Museum for the first time in a couple of years. They had several works on display by Lowry, some of which I'd not seen before as they were on loan from private collections. I went to see the David Nash and Robert Indiana show at Yorkshire Sculpture Park, the Zara Hussein show at Oldham Art Gallery, also the Hugh Winterbottom and Liz Ackley show in Oldham too. I was at the excellent Radical Decades conference in Rochdale too a while ago, which was really cool. I also visited the Whitworth in Manchester as I wanted to see the work there by Anya Paintsill. I went to Salford Museum and Art Gallery recently to see the current show of work by Geoffrey Key, Lowry and Harold Riley. This is a must-see for fans of Northern Art and it's on until April 2023, so it's well worth checking it out. I enjoyed seeing some of the other works that have been interwoven with the exhibition. This included stuff by Joseph Herman, Brian Bradshaw, Sheila Fell, Trevor Grimshaw, Edgar Rowley Smart and others too. I'm hopefully visiting the Hepworth soon to see the Sheila Hicks exhibition and the Emmy Alrai show too. And finally, although I've probably missed a few, I visited the Peace Hall in Halifax to see a show for the artist that I will be speaking to today, so that leads nicely into my guest introduction. My guest today was born in London in 1963. She studied at the Royal Academy Schools from 1981 to 1984, where she was encouraged by Sir Hugh Casson, the then director of the Royal Academy, to develop her sculpture. At 17 she was a prodigious talent, and one of the youngest students to have ever entered the schools. She emerged into the contemporary art scene in the 1980s, and continued success places her amongst the most sensitive artists working today. Her artistic world is one of fantastical creatures, animals and hybrids, brought forth in Gloucestershire or France via drawings, prints, collage, mosaic, or a multitude of sculptural processes. Human attributes may be found in some of her creatures. They are not just animals, but characters, conveying a possible infinite variety of emotion and narrative. She has said, "I sculpt characters and beings. The dogs, the hares, the minotaurs are all characters beyond animal form. I am not interested in making a replica." Working big is an important aspect of her work, and she enjoys the constructional and creative challenges which flow from this aspiration. My guest is an absolute master of wire sculpture, a skill developed over her entire career. The large examples of these works are both breathtaking and intriguing. The intertwined wires convey a strength and monumentality. Quite simply, they refuse to be ignored, yet at the same time are capable of conveying the most subtle gesture and emotion. In works which are cast in bronze, she may include what Marcel Duchamp would call ready-mades. Found objects like old machine parts, coins and children's toys seem to hybridise her characters even further and leave the viewer with more questions than answers. My guest has exhibited in public exhibitions around the world, including the UK, the USA, Canada, Ireland, Belgium and the Netherlands. Her work is in public and private collections all over too. Her 2022 exhibition at the Peace Hall in Halifax saw the installation of large sculptural works combined with charcoal drawings, bronze maquettes, wire drawings and ephemera. I managed to visit and thought that the large sculptures worked incredibly well in the more urban setting, and the vast courtyard allowed you to fully walk around the work and view them from different aspects. I'm really looking forward to learning more today about her development as an artist, as well as her processes and interests. We'll also discuss certain works and exhibitions too. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to my guest today, Sophie Ryder. Hi Sophie, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you.
Was that okay?
Yeah, it's good. It's a really hot sunny day here. And,
it's a gorgeous day today.
So amazing.
It's very good. Have you been working today then? Have you been busy today?
Yeah, on the weekends I tend to do things in the small studio or in my house, so things that don't make too much mess.
Ah, right, okay. Yeah.
Because my work is quite physical and messy, and I have to be in the big studio when I'm doing my sculpture, so I tend to do tiny little maquettes in the house, which I've started using this. It's a kind of plasticine crossed with clay, crossed with wax, so it's very clean. It can be reused. You don't have to wash your hands every 5 seconds because you can cut it, you can squash it, and it's just reusable.
Oh, right, okay.
So I've been using that to make maquettes in the house. And I also do a lot of mosaics. So I've been I can do those. I don't do the glass ones in the house because when you cut them, the glass shatters a bit. So I've got 4 dogs, so I don't want them treading in the
Of
bits.
course.
But I'm using little marble pieces, and when you cut those, they don't shatter. They just break, but they don't have shards,
Yeah.
So
No, I saw you
do
posting on Instagram a few just before the last bank holiday weekend. I think you said something like that you're excited because you had 3 days to do more mosaics or something. It was very funny, sort of tongue-in-cheek remark. It was very good.
Well, I love it when there's a bank holiday. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, and some people said, "Oh, well, shouldn't you be taking a break?" But to me, my work is taking a break.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, when I'm not working and having to do sort of, office stuff or, all that kind of thing, I don't think of that as working, really. Whereas, of course it is, but for me, the enjoyable part is actually making.
Yeah, well, one thing I did want to say was, with regards to like the whole pandemic in the last few years and everything else, did that sort of impact your normal sort of working practice a lot in particular?
Well, I mean, I couldn't go to the foundry, obviously, so I couldn't check on any of the bigger pieces.
Yeah.
I had so many exhibitions lined up, which were all cancelled.
Right.
I mean, yes, it was rather upsetting that, I had all these lovely shows planned and they couldn't happen. One of which was Peace Hall. And but because it was happening to everyone around the world, it kind of felt fine. I didn't feel like it was because of anything I'd done. It didn't, it was not a personal thing.
Yeah, so there's literally nothing you can do, is there? It was just
nothing you could do. So you have to take it in your stride, and there's no point getting depressed. I mean, it was happening to the whole world. It's pointless feeling sorry for yourself.
Were you able to still work and produce everything?
Oh yeah, I mean, I made loads of things. I mean, I'm going to have an exhibition in November, December time with all the work, which sounds crazy because it's only just coming through the foundry, because there was I made loads of small pieces.
Right.
And I have my own mold maker at home. So she's been slowly molding them over the last year.
Wow.
So I've got probably about 15 small pieces that I haven't shown yet.
Right.
So I'm going to keep them all so that I can have a show of work that's all new.
Oh, that'll be good. Excellent. Is that going to be in London? What will that be?
Yeah, that will be with my gallery in Mayfair, Hignall Gallery.
Yeah.
Who represent me in the UK.
Yeah.
That's
good. That's really good.
Yeah.
My introduction to your work came, I think, via the Yorkshire Sculpture Park. I know that you've got links obviously going back there since like the 1986, I think it is, which we can talk about a bit about that later. But a work that sort of has a personal connection to myself is I think it's from 2007. It's the sitting sculpture, which the great big sculpture there at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. And I mean, I've been going like a long time to the Sculpture Park, and I mean, I must have seen that probably. I think it was installed possibly in your 2008 show there that you had at the Sculpture Park, and that work is like, because I go with like my family and my kids and everything. My daughter was born in 2007, so I think she's probably seen that work her entire life before she can even remember. And it's become like a bit of a destination work for us within the Sculpture Park, because it is one of those ones that that we know is there and everybody goes to see it, and it's in a really good spot as well. It's right next to the Camellia House, I think.
Yes.
So it's just sort of, can you talk about that work, or is there sort of any significance with that particular piece?
Yeah. Well, the piece was one of the first very large, well, I say the first probably, it was the second one I've ever made that has a split in it.
Yes.
So the split happened because the first one I'd made that had a split like that, it hadn't been intentional. So I'd made this massive open hand. And obviously when you make big sculpture like that, you have to make it in sections because you can't transport them and you can't get them into spaces or on lorries or anything. So they're all made in sections. So when I went to put the hand together after I'd finished it, I positioned it to check it was in the right place, and a gap formed in between the 3 sections. And I thought, actually, I really like that gap. So you could see the sky through it, and you could see the sky moving through it. And so it kind of brought the piece to life. And I thought, that looks really cool. So I didn't ever put the hand together properly without the gap. I always left a gap of a few inches.
Okay, I see.
And then I thought, actually, it would be quite interesting to see what it would be like to leave a big enough gap to actually walk through.
Yeah.
whether that could actually work with a figure without making the figure look oversized or, strange. So when I made sitting, I tried it in the sections, but obviously when you make a big sculpture like that, it's kind of, you have to think about safety,
Of course, yeah.
you can't just stand two huge sections without anything joining. So then I had to work out how to join it together without having it actually joined all over. So then I put some rebar through the top and bottom,
I know what you mean.
to
I've
hold
seen
it
that,
together. And then again, I really liked the aspect through the sculpture of being able to see the sky, because it makes the sculpture feel alive, And so I left it like that. Unfortunately, the one that's sitting at the sculpture park, they wanted to put the little fence around it because there are so many school children visiting there that they said they're just going to climb all over it. So that there has to be something to say, do not climb. And signs don't work with little children. No. They're up straight away, So it's good that they did it, because it's been there now. Is it 12 years?
It's been 2008, I think it would have been, wouldn't it?
It's
been a good while.
It's still in great condition, because it hasn't been. I mean, the rabbits have been living on it and things.
Will that stay there for pretty much for as long as it's there, I suppose, hopefully,
I mean, I could easily take it away and put it somewhere else, but
no, don't do that.
I can't think of a nicer place. I can't think of a better place for it to be.
It's funny because, like I say, I couldn't imagine it not being there. There was a tree in the churchyard, the Highway Wide. That tree that was just in the sculpture park. That's gone now. I think it's gone. I thought that was like there forever, and because I saw it for for such a long period of time, and then it's just gone. I think he's moved it somewhere else. So obviously these things
people
happen.
often say, when they see the other piece that had been at the sculpture park crawling, the big bronze.
Of course, yeah.
So people see it now, and like it was in London for about 6 months in Berkeley Square, and they say, wasn't that the one that was in Yorkshire? Or is there still one in Yorkshire? So, but the thing is that with the bronzes, they cost a fortune to cast.
Of course.
So if I'd left that bronze at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park, I would have had to cast another one to be able to show it elsewhere.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, but I think leaving one is a nice.
Yeah, no, it's good, and like I say, it's a destination. We always tick. It's like our tick off box. We do a bit of a route around, and we always see that one. And we go 3 or 4 times a year to the sculpture park, so we love it there. I absolutely love the sculpture park.
No, it's fantastic place. I mean, I've had a long relationship with.
You have,
park.
It's been.
I went there. The very first thing I did was, I didn't know anything about the Yorkshire Sculpture Park when I graduated, and just after graduating, literally days after, I had a phone call on a landline. I remember it so vividly. I was working on a massive sculpture in my bedroom in my basement flat in Holland Park.
Yeah.
And I got this phone call from Peter Murray. Didn't know who he was. And he said, "Oh, hello, is that Sophie Ryder?" And I said, "Yeah, speaking." And he said, I got your number from Elizabeth Frink. She's put you forward for a 3-month residency at the Yorkshire Sculpture Park.
Wow.
And I thought, Liz Frink I knew, because she was my brother's best friend, was her son.
Oh, right, okay.
So, and I'd been to their house and everything. So, but I had no idea she'd put me forward for this residency.
Yeah.
So I was thrilled, it was really exciting. So obviously I took it and went to live there for 3 months in a caravan in the sculpture park in a field full of cows. And it's the first summer that I'd ever spent the whole summer in England, because I usually go to France for the summer, because my mother's French.
Yeah.
And so I went to the sculpture park, did the 3 months, took part in the Breton Menagerie exhibition, and made a small flock of sheep when I was there, and a big horse called the Son of York. And I called it the Son of York because whilst I was making it, Henry Moore died.
Right.
And he was born in York. So
of course,
I called it the Son of York.
Oh, right.
And sadly, I'd been to have lunch with Elizabeth Frink 2 weeks before he died. I'd gone down to Dorset. But anyway, and we were going to go there for Sunday lunch. We were going to go to his house, and 2 weeks before going, he died. So it was really sad.
That's all. Yeah.
Because I've been to his place, but I'd never met him. So I was a bit sad about that. And,
amazing that you knew Frink, though. It's amazing that you knew Elizabeth Frink. That's
I used to go and stay there. I used to stay the weekend with her.
Did you?
Because when my brother died when he was 23, and so I became friends with. I already had a crush on Lau, her son, and so I used to go there and stay the weekend. And then when I got married, I still used to go and see her.
Yeah.
But then I had the exhibition in 1991 as well.
Yeah.
In the Yorkshire Sculpture Park in the Boffey Gardens gallery, and then again in 2008.
Yeah. It's been a brilliant sort of relationship there, isn't it, with the Sculpture Park? I think. I mean, it's an amazing place anyway. I mean, I think in the 70s. I think it started in the 70s. I think originally.
Yeah.
But, it's been.
But the way it's developed, it's just.
Now with all the new buildings, the new gallery spaces, and I don't think there's an artist in the world who wouldn't want to show there. It's at that level.
No.
It's incredible.
Definitely. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean Yorkshire itself as well with the Hepworth as well. The Hepworth Gallery.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, that is actually a genuinely. I mean, I think about it in the north of England. That is a truly world class venue. In the north of England, there's not that many in the north necessarily, but it is actually a world class sort of gallery. That
definitely.
And
now Peter Murray has now retired.
Retired, yeah, just retired, hasn't he? Mm.
But Claire Lilly, who's always been working with him, you're going to start hearing the dogs moaning now because it's 10 minutes. You've got 10 minutes to go, dogs. It's not 5 o'clock. It's not 5 o'clock yet.
I know you like your dog.
Elsie, she's 14 and she's so bossy. She tells me when it's not even 5 o'clock yet. It's 10 to. So Claire Lilly's taking over now, and she's been working alongside Peter for years. So it will be a very easy transition. It'll be really exciting to see what she does, what happens, because obviously she's going to have slightly different tastes and different ideas. So
it's got to such a high level now as a venue. I mean, it's sometimes I speak to people and I say, "Oh, and they've never been," and I'm like, "What are you doing? How can you've never been?"
I know, and people who live up north.
I know, they're crazy.
Why would you not
It's less than an hour from where I am. It's like it's insane. But what we'll do now is, Sophie, if it's okay, I was going to go back to the beginning, if you like, if that's possible. And we start talking about sort of your early life. From what I've read and whatnot, and I know that you were born in London, and you, as you mentioned before, your mother's French, and your dad was an English dad who owned and edited the Fleet Street Letter. Was it quite a creative household then, when you were from being a young kid?
Yeah, I mean, my brother was a sculptor, so he went to Chelsea. He was a sculptor and a musician.
Right.
So yeah, he was artistic. My sister, one of my sisters was, and my mother used to buy old jewelry and rework it and turn it into something new.
Yeah.
And my grandfather was very artistic. In fact, he was friends with Bonnard. And he used to always tell us this story about how, because he lived in Paris, just near the Eiffel Tower. Literally, they were really close buddies, and he used to say that Bonnard always used to say to him, "Francis, you should come over and take a few paintings, help yourself, take the ones you like." He always used to tell us this story, and he never did.
Oh, no.
Stop telling us that story because it's not funny anymore.
Oh, that's very good.
He was amazing. He used to tell the most incredible stories. My grandfather. He only had one leg, so he was in a wheelchair.
Right.
He didn't lose it in the war, which we all thought he did. I only found out when I was about 12 that actually he lost it in a car accident.
Right.
But he was an amazing man. He told us the most incredible stories that were just so believable, and just, I'm sure that's where my ideas for mythological creatures came from.
Is it? Right.
Because he was just amazing at storytelling. We'd sit with him on his lap for hours and hours listening to these stories that he'd tell. And he had this he had a pet magpie, and it used to stand on his shoulder and pick the 1 or 2 hairs he had left on the top of his head and steal things and hide things from us. And
Wow.
yeah.
So was that your mother's dad then? Was that your mother's dad?
Yeah.
So he was obviously French. He was a French. Sorry, he was a French.
Yeah, he was French. Yeah,
right.
very
Okay.
French. He was the head of the resistance in the south of France.
Wow.
He's quite high up. He had code name Olive, and he was very decorated by de Gaulle.
Right. Amazing. Yeah, I mean, I know you. I read that you did jewelry classes, didn't you? Quite young. Was that
so my mother took me to jewelry on Saturday mornings, which is when I got the sort of bug for working with wire.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that was a good decision, wasn't it, for her to take you to that classes? That worked out well.
It was great. And copper wire and gold wire we used.
You actually still remember that? You still vaguely remember that happening?
Oh, I totally remember it.
Yeah,
I remember being fascinated by the wire.
Because you were only about 5, weren't you? 5 or 6. You were very young.
Yeah, very little.
Right.
And then when I was about 15, I had a friend in the south of France who was making a scarecrow. Oh, no, sorry, I'm talking rubbish. He was making a wire fence.
Yeah.
And I started making him a scarecrow for his vegetable patch. And that's when I started working with the wire properly and getting really into it.
Yeah.
Back then, they were much more like drawings in space. They were 3-dimensional, but very, very linear.
Right.
So they weren't solid at all.
Right.
And then gradually over the years, they became more and more solid.
Evolved,
and then there were times when I went back to doing more like drawings, and then I started doing the wire drawings, which are very solid but 2-dimensional.
Of course, yeah.
So
I love those. The ones with the eyes and things. I've seen.
Yeah,
they're amazing.
So you can get some amazingly deep contrasts, and they look flat, but actually in places they're a couple of inches thick.
Ah, right, okay.
So to get the real depth of the dark bits, and
Yeah, I love them. They're brilliant. And so obviously, like you say, you spent a lot of time in France then, and you continue to do that, don't you? You go to France quite.
Yeah, I go
a lot.
Every year. Yeah, I have a house there and a studio. So it seems bonkers when the weather's so lovely here, but the thing is about going there for the summer is that I have a swimming pool, which if I had a swimming pool here, and I swim every day when I'm in England, but obviously I go to a public pool.
Yeah.
But the thing is about having a pool in England is that you have to heat it because it's never really going to be warm enough for long enough to keep it warm.
That's true. Yeah.
And secondly, it's just, in France, you're guaranteed a summer.
Of course.
Every day.
Yeah.
It's like it might rain 1 day out of 3 months.
Whereabouts in France is it that you go?
It's in Provence.
Oh, Provence. Lovely.
It's right in the middle, in between the mountains and the sea, and
very nice.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So you go there. You go there for a few months a year. Do you spend literally the summer there? Yeah, that's the
whole summer.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. So Sophie, I believe that when you was a child, you spent some time in hospital with possible leukemia. Is that right? And how old were you then at that time? Then were you? I
wasn't quite 5.
Wow.
I was about 4. So I spent a year in hospital. It was suspected leukemia, so it was called thrombocytopenia.
Right.
I can never say it. Thrombocytopenia purpura or something ridiculous.
Right.
It was all the symptoms were the same, so that's why they thought I had it.
Yeah.
And then I had a bone marrow transplant, and I was okay.
And did you do your drawing there then? Did you do like a lot of drawing?
I used to draw all day long.
Did you?
I filled up books, and I used to tear off the drawings and put them all over the walls in my room.
Did you?
One of the hospitals, I was at the hospital when they found out I had, because I actually went into hospital to have my tonsils and adenoids removed, and that's when they realised that I had this thing.
All right.
So in the first hospital I was in an isolation room for several months, and so I just drew and covered the walls in drawings obsessively.
Yeah. So. No. I told a friend about that. I was saying about about I was just saying that you spent time in hospital, and she said, "Oh, it reminds me of Frida Kahlo when she went to hospital, and she was like doing all these drawings." I was like, "Oh right, okay, yeah, it's quite okay. I can see where you're coming from with that."
Yeah,
So,
it was just there was nothing else to do from
yeah,
start. There were no televisions, no nothing. Now a child would be in there with a mobile phone or something, wouldn't they, or a
correct,
television at least.
absolutely, yeah.
But it's the only option. You either read books or you did drawings.
The drawing. Well, I mean, obviously it worked out
And I
well
was,
doing it,
yeah,
and all fed into
exactly.
the person that you became. So your education then as a child, this is pre sort of Kingston and stuff, like young sort of schooling. How did that sort of go?
Well,
as a sort of,
then I didn't go to school quite at the same time as everybody else because I was in hospital for until I was just over 5. But then I stayed at home with a nanny for a bit because I was still quite poorly.
okay,
And I didn't want to go to school. I absolutely didn't want to go to school. So they couldn't get me to go. So I stayed at home. And then eventually I went to a little primary school in called St. Mary's, a little Catholic school, which I hated. The nuns were horrible to me because I was quite a naughty girl, I think. Well, I was very outspoken, so they didn't let me get away with anything. My sisters were so well behaved and did everything they were told. I eventually got expelled, and then I went to a school in Chiswick Comprehensive,
right,
where I got really badly bullied, and told my mother when I turned 15, I said, if you don't take me away from this school, I'm going to walk out on my own. So she took me. No, I said, if you don't take me out of this school, I won't pass any of my exams, and I won't be able to go to art school. So
right.
she took me out that day after I'd been covered in eggs and flour, and it was quite horrific. And she put me into a crammer in Marylebone High Street.
Right.
And I did all my O levels and A levels in 1 year when I was 15.
Wow.
And went straight to Kingston to do a foundation course.
Right. Okay.
And
So you went to
then
Kingston.
from there, I applied for the academy, and they said no before I went to the foundation course, after I'd done my A levels, I went to the academy, and they said, no, you can't come here just straight from doing that. You have to go and do a foundation to decide whether you want to do sculpture or painting.
Yeah.
So I went off and did the year at Kingston, came back and said, I want to do sculpture and painting. And they said, well, we only have an MA in sculpture. You can do a degree in painting. And I said,
Right.
okay, and whatever. But I still spent a lot of the time doing sculpture when I was on the painting course. I actually only did one painting.
Did you?
The rest of the time I was drawing or making sculpture.
Yeah.
But when I went there after my year at Kingston, they said, oh, well, you're too young because we only take people, 20 odd years old, and I was only 17. And I said, but I did everything you said. I went off, I did my A levels, I went to do a foundation course, and now I've come back. And he said, well, bring me your portfolio tomorrow and I'll see. So I did, and he said, okay, you can come after Easter. And he said, it was Sir Hugh Casson then, the head of the schools, and he said, we normally only take 6 a year for the first year, but this year we'll have 7. So
that's how. What was it like then at the? Did you learn? Did you learn a lot? Did you enjoy your time there?
I loved it because you were allowed to just do art for all day long.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah.
All the materials were free.
Yeah.
I got a grant to go there.
Yeah.
I got a full grant, scholarship, whatever they call it now.
Yeah.
I used to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning. I was always the first. I had a big lurcher dog who they didn't let dogs in at the time, except that the guy at the gate, what they called the guard, the porter, had a big Alsatian, and he was married to the print assistant. So they had this big Alsatian, and they couldn't really tell me I couldn't bring my dog in because they brought theirs in. So I said, well, he's going to be my model. So then I did loads of drawings of him, which is when I started drawing dogs. And then he used to just come in with me every day. So I'd be in there from 8 a.m, take the dog for a walk at lunchtime, and then leave at 8 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
And so I was first there and last out.
That's amazing. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say you were literally the youngest. You were one of the youngest ever students, weren't you, to be accepted into the Royal Court? Is that right? Is that what I read?
So the youngest, the one before me was Turner, was 17 when he went there too. So there hasn't been another one of.
Has there not?
I worked hard, so they they didn't have any reason.
No.
To complain. I worked really hard. I loved it there because, as I said, you had a huge studio space and endless materials. People would help you do different things. I loved printmaking.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of help with that. And, it was a kind of printmaking to me was like halfway between 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional.
Okay.
Because it was quite physical and because you could get different textures in the paper, and I love that. And the print tutors there were fantastic.
Right.
I did do some drawing, but I ended up modeling because sometimes the model wouldn't turn up. So I remember having to model for the other students. And then I found out that, I was told off because they said students aren't allowed to model because it was nude modeling, and they said, students aren't allowed to model for the other students, and because we're not allowed to pay students, so it was a kind of rule. So I said, I'm not doing it for free.
No.
So I stopped. But
of course,
they had this amazing drawing studio. The drawing room was really old-fashioned, just how you imagine an old drawing studio at the Royal Academy would be.
Yeah, right. So after the Royal Academy, what did you then do straight after that? Was you you had a residency, I think, at Grisdale Sculpture Park? Is that right? Is that something that you did sort of soon after?
Yeah. So sorry, I'm going to look through my biography because I can never remember when things happened. So after the academy, immediately afterwards, whilst I was still there, in fact, I was invited to exhibit at a gallery in Cork Street,
right,
which was just next to the academy, Edward Tota Gallery. Which was great. It's like, wow, come out of art school and go straight into a top London Mayfair gallery, And unfortunately, I did so well with him immediately. He took my work to the Zurich Art Fair and he sold everything out. He said, I sold it all within 10 minutes. In fact, he said, I sold it all before the opening and then had to make out I'd sold it in the first 10 minutes because they weren't allowed to sell it before the opening.
Oh, right. Okay.
And, so that did really well, and then unfortunately he died.
Oh wow!
Of a heart attack. So that was upsetting, and having been like so excited about everything, and then that was pretty horrible. And then I started showing with Berkeley Square Gallery, which then became Osborne Samuel. And they were also in Bruton Street in London. And then I had the Grisdale Forest. I went there a few times. Forest of Dean.
Yeah.
Did loads of residencies.
You've done loads, haven't you? You were at Salisbury Cathedral as well. Was another one, wasn't it?
Salisbury Cathedral.
Yeah, that was quite a big one.
So residencies. Then, when I was working, I was doing things in wire and in wicker.
Right.
So because I was working on site, I had to use obviously something that I could use outside, and so I was using lots of different materials. I made a wicker stag, which unfortunately caused loads of accidents at Grisdale because it was not far off the road, so people kept shooting at it, and also cars would sort of screech to a halt because they'd see this massive stag, and then cars would fly into the back of each other. And
oh my god!
Anyway, but that was amazing working in Grisdale.
Yeah.
I did several pieces there. In fact, one of them is still there and nobody knows because I hid it. So I'm just waiting for people to contact me and say, but they might not know it's mine because it's got no signs and it's made of concrete, and it's got moss growing all over it. And
What,
it's
is it, an
life-size
animal?
horse. Yeah, it's a life-size horse,
Oh, what?
and
Oh, I'm gonna have to
nobody
go
knows
and have.
where it is.
I did go up. I went up because David Nash had a sort of little show that I shown there not too long ago, and I went up to see that
Yeah,
after speaking
yeah,
with him. But it's good, Grisdale, and yeah,
yeah.
I
It's
quite I like it
lovely.
there.
Yeah, I
That's
worked
amazing,
there. Stayed there, worked there.
fantastic.
When was that? I can't find the page with all those. Let me have a look. It's a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
But that was when
Early 80s, maybe, was it? Not early
yeah,
80s. It would have been mid 80s.
Yeah, there was someone doing. It was 1986.
Yeah, 86. Okay.
And the one in Forest of Dean was 88. Salisbury 87.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were loads.
I mean, I've seen a lot of the work at that time. You were, there's a lot of animals, and obviously your interest in animals is like kind of legendary, and you sort of, your passion for animals is obviously there. But I have seen I've seen online a work from like 1979, which was obviously even sort of the education and sort of going to the Royal College, which was sheep, I think it was. I think so. You were doing stuff like even before then, weren't you? You were still working in sort of in sculpture and stuff all the way through, your career.
Oh
really.
yeah.
No.
I mean, I did when I did the residency at the Sculpture Park.
Yeah.
The first time I went there, when was that? After the resident, 1986.
Yeah.
As well. So I made a small flock of sheep, and then I kind of liked the idea of having a whole group of things. So I'm always interested in sort of the interaction between different figures, and it just seemed kind of like a great idea to make this whole flock of sheep. Yeah. There were 35 of them.
Wow.
So we just bought this property that I'm living still in now, 32 years later, and I made a whole flock of sheep, and Peter Murray came up one day and said, "Oh, I've got to show those at Sculpture Park." So that's when I had my show there in 1991.
Yeah. That's no, it's good. What was going to start doing now is starting to talk about some of the actual specific, the works themselves. I know, like I say, the early work was perhaps more directly figurative, perhaps with regards to the sheep and the animals, and you mentioned the stags and things like that. When did the actual move towards the sort of more reoccurring characters, which obviously, the initial one, I believe, I think was the Minotaur. When did that sort of happen? And I believe that Picasso was an influence through the references in that way. But how did was that sort of something that was going on in your mind all the way through your career? This sort of interest
Absolutely.
in
Yeah, I mean, I did Greek mythology at school,
right?
So I was interested in the Minotaur. Picasso's Minotaur I found a little bit threatening. Yeah. And I feel like my Minotaur is much more camp, kind of. He's a little bit camp sometimes. He's quite muscly, but he was definitely a cross between a bull and a man. But he had hooves, and now he has hands. So he's changed a lot over the years. And the very first one I made was a Minotaur sniffing a daisy. He was about 8 feet tall. I made it in my flat in London, and I'd never made a big piece before. Wow. Had no idea about how to make a sculpture. So the whole thing collapsed because it didn't have an armature. That's when I realized I had to learn how to weld and make frames because sculpture won't stand without it. I've had a few things like that happen to me over the years where, like with crawling, I made crawling, and after about 3 months of working on her, the weight of the plaster just brought her down on top of me. So there's like tons of plaster just buried me. And I remember feeling so depressed that, so many times sculptures have collapsed not literally on me, but have collapsed as well. And you just have to get right back in there. And carry on.
I guess what do you do when you come in the morning, like after working on it, and then it's collapsed like overnight and things like that? If that sort of happened.
Oh, it's so depressing.
Yeah.
But you just have to get on and start again. They can't. I never forget one piece that's been a recurring theme is my hugging, a bit like this mosaic behind me. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's lovely.
So there's not that actual stance, but a Minotaur and a lady here. And I made this little maquette, and I'd spent months on it. It was a really complicated piece because there were lots of bits in between. The figures were really difficult to get to, and I'd worked on it for so long. It's about 60 centimeters tall.
Yeah.
and I called my girl, Charlie, who works for me, who's worked for me for such a long time, who makes all my molds. I called her over from the other studio on the intercom and said, "You've got to come and get it now, because I can't stop, and you need to take it away from me, because I won't stop working on it." And as I was talking, there was this loud bang, crash, bang, and the turntable that I'd been working on, the pin had come out.
Oh no!
And the whole thing collapsed, and the plaster just thumped down to the ground, and literally, it was like a powder puff. It just puffed into 100 pieces.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She said, "What was that noise?" And I said, "That was the sculpture. It's gone. It's in 100 pieces." And I remember I just had to start again, and I tried to put it back together, and I just worked on it solidly for 3 weeks, about 16 hours every day. I was just, until it was done, I wasn't going to be happy.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be one of my really best pieces.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I love the wire, your technique with wire, especially, which is something that stayed with you throughout your entire career. And it's just you've worn your fingers to the point that you don't have fingerprints. Is that right? Is that?
No, I don't. When I go to America, well, especially when I used to go, because I used to do loads of wire sculpture. Sorry about the noise. It's just my mosaic pieces falling onto the top.
You can't stop working, can you?
No, I can't. I can't sit still and just talk. I have to be doing something. So when I used to go to America, they used to make me do my fingerprints 3 times, because they just couldn't read them, and they'd say, "Press harder." Then they'd grab my hand and squash my other fingers, and they really, really just didn't believe that I didn't have any fingerprints.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah, I just developed this way of working with the wire.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long process, and it's time consuming.
I love the wire pieces. I think they're just incredible. I think that there's something about the sort of the actual material. This sort of, itself, it seems to work so well. It's just fantastic things. I do sort of, they do sort of mean a lot to me when I see them. And then, so obviously we talked about the Minotaur and the origins of that work and whatnot. And then you decided to create another character, if you like, to sort of like sit alongside the Minotaur, which was Lady Hare, which I think which is possibly maybe your most famous sort of character, maybe not. How did it sort of start? How did that? What was the development of that?
Because she's my character, whereas the Minotaur, is an iconic piece that from Picasso and
of course, yes. Lady Hare is completely yours. Yes.
So I invented the Lady Hare, and I was looking for a female to go with my Minotaur that was half animal and half human.
Yep.
And the hare head just seemed to work so well with the female body because of the ears and I don't know, it just worked. And to me, I look at my sculpture now and I don't even see the hare head. I just see a female person's body, because she is totally, without the head, she's totally human, and the head is a mask. So at first, like with pieces like the Minotaur and Hare on the Bench, the lady was actually mostly animal. She was a hare, really. Just like the Minotaur started off being much more bull than man.
That's right.
He's now human with a mask. So they're both wearing masks now. They've become totally human, and the mask is just so that they can still be they can be anybody. They can be the person who's looking at them. People can imagine themselves as the couple, and the mask just allows me to express different emotions without it being too sexual or too odd. Watching these strange positions, it's much more acceptable when it's an animal head, and also it. Inevitably, if I was making a female body with a human head, they'd all end up looking like me, I should imagine. So I didn't want that. I didn't want them to be portraits. Very often you see artists who do figurative work, and all their humans look the same, and they usually look like them. And I want people to be able to see themselves in my work or imagine them as being somebody they know, or I don't want them to be a portrait.
Yeah. Excellent. That's excellent. I love that, Sophie. I really like that. Because certainly with the earlier work, I think you've got a work which is a bench, which is a Minotaur and the hare on a bench, and they are very much more like the animals themselves, aren't they? The hare.
Yeah, that was one of the first that was one of the first pieces with them together.
Yeah.
And then so they, and also when, like a lot of the work at Halifax at the Peace Hall actually is quite early work. So that piece, the dancing hares, those are all completely animal, the dancing hares, but then crawling lady hare, she's completely human.
Yeah, yeah.
And people look at her and they call her a big bunny, and it's quite funny. Just it's funny because she's not. She's totally human.
Yeah. I mean, I think they're brilliant. I mean, I've written here. I've just made a note here that with regards to the possible, is possibly a human in a hair mask, which obviously you've just confirmed. And then I was sort of talking about the masks as a psychological element with masks, and as well as being sort of part of ancient iconography. And then there's so much symbolism that comes with wearing masks, and there's so much psychological that we have. We wear masks as individuals when we're, there's sort of so many connotations that come from wearing from masks anyway. It works really well with the work. Yeah. Oh, yeah. God, yeah. In the last couple of years, we've not had them off, have we?
No. And the most amazing thing is when you think about the little children who have grown up, like my granddaughter who's in Italy, and they're still wearing masks in Italy.
Oh, are they? Right.
And my granddaughter has grown up only seeing people with masks on, and you just think, and I can tell the difference because I have two grandchildren here who are a little bit older, and so they've seen, people without masks. But a little girl living in a city, watching people walking around with masks on, I think it's very difficult for them to now understand people's facial expressions, because they can't see anything, so they can't read what people are saying. Whereas children could pick up language much more easily because,
of course,
half of it is the way you express yourself, the way you move your face, and not being able to see that, I think it's making this, this generation of children not speak as well.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting because, of course, the human brain is sort of pre-made. It's pre-built to accept, like you say, certainly language, but also this facial distinctions. That's how we are as animals, as creatures ourselves, and that's sort of how. And that's really interesting. Yeah, you're quite right. That I never sort of give it much thought. That, but the fact that people have not been able to look, young babies and things like that, I've never actually sort of seen the expressions of people. That's interesting. Yeah, that's quite interesting.
So I've noticed the difference. I mean, obviously she's being brought up bilingual, so she's speaking English and Italian, but I still think there's something different. There's something different with her, the way she looks. She looks at you now. When you talk to her, she doesn't just listen. She'll look at you to try and see what you're saying because, she's only 3.5, so she doesn't always understand everything. So she'll really look at you to understand what you're saying. It is quite, but so the masks have become much even more sort of
I get it. Yeah, I mean, the other sort of thing that you do as well, a lot of obviously are your dogs. You do, the dogs themselves. So I'm assuming that they're based on your own pack, I guess.
I have 4 whippets. 2 of them are crossed with lurchers, and 2 of them are crossed with Italian greyhounds.
Ah, right.
They're very small. They're quite little ones, and they're just always with me 24 hours a day, and they are just they're my babies. I'm completely obsessed with them. I mean, I'm a completely bonkers mad dog lady, I have to admit. I can't be without them. I worry about them when I go to Italy or wherever I travel for work. Even if someone really competent is looking after them, I worry about them just being upset, especially one of them who's 14. I worry about
14,
him.
that's a good age. Have you always had them then? Have you always had sort of dogs? Have you
so I used to have that sounds awful, I don't even want to admit to this, but I used to breed 1 litter from a bitch.
Okay.
And then have her neutered.
Yeah.
Or spayed or whatever you call it. And then I'd keep 1 bitch, and then 5 years later I'd let her have a litter.
Yeah.
But then I started supporting all these dog charities, and especially the greyhounds in Spain, and I'd sell sculpture and give them the proceeds. And I thought, God, this feels really wrong to be breeding dogs when there are so many dogs who need homes.
Of course, yeah.
So I've stopped now. So my last bitch, she's now 8, she didn't have a litter, and I feel kind of mean because I always used to think that it was important for a bitch to have
Yeah.
puppies because they could get kind of bitchy, but actually, and also get sick.
Right.
And then I found out that actually the reason I thought that dogs got ill from not breeding is nothing to do with the fact that they hadn't had a litter. It's to do with the fact that people are supposed to have them spayed when whether they have finished breeding.
Yes.
Whatever, they're supposed to have their wing removed because it can get infected, and that's why bitches get sick if they don't have that done.
Yeah. That's interesting. My wife works at a vet, so I'm sure she could have a big discussion with you about it.
But lots of people don't know that. But you know, even when they have finished breeding, which I would never wanted to breed from a bitch and under over the age of 6. I think that's wrong to do a first litter.
Okay. But yeah, you love your dogs.
Story.
I've seen some very good videos on Instagram of your dogs jumping up chasing after
Oh
squirrels and things like that.
They are. They're also, my dogs are vegan like me. So some people think shock horror. You know, dogs shouldn't be vegan, but they're the healthiest dogs you've ever seen, as you can see from that video.
Oh, that video! How high does that dog jump? I couldn't.
Oh, that's 20 feet tall. That sculpture.
Is it? Gosh,
there was a squirrel sitting in
ridiculous.
The top inside it.
Right.
And they just all went nuts. They're such hunters. It's a nightmare trying to keep those dogs.
I love your drawings of the dogs. They're very they're sort of very tender and they're very nice. And I think whippets. Artists like whippets, don't they? I think it's not just yourself. It seems to be a thing with whippets.
Well, I think one of the reasons is they're not hairy, so you can really see their shape. You know, you can see their shape. They're very, very muscly. You can see their ribs. You can, there's a lot to look at. Whereas a fluffy dog, you're just going to be drawing fluff. Hair,
yeah, of course.
But they're also so agile and they're moving all the time. So they run and so there's a lot to.
They sleep quite a bit as well. Whippets, I believe.
Oh yeah.
They got very active when they're out and about, but then they just like lounging around, don't they? When they're back.
They're the laziest dogs in the world. If you didn't take them out, they wouldn't mind. I mean, when you do take them out, they go crazy.
Yeah, that's it. Because Lucian Freud used to have them, didn't he? I think he had a whippet. He did, yeah.
Yeah. But they are such beautiful dogs. I mean, once you've had a whippet, you couldn't have another dog, really. Any sight hound is amazing, but I love them. For me, they're the only kind of dogs I want to draw.
Yeah, you do draw a lot, don't you? You sort of like you draw. Is it drawing that you do from life, but then do you also draw from your imagination as well when you're creating, obviously, the works, the Minotaurs and whatnot?
Yeah, when I draw the Minotaurs and lady hairs, I do that from my head.
Sorry, that was a really bad question. I don't know what goes on in your house.
No, I do them from the imagination. But the dog.
Well, it's your own body. It's your own body, I believe. The
I a lot of the time my daughter used to model for me.
Oh, right, okay.
Now she's in Italy, so the other daughter won't model for me. So the thing is, once you've been drawing something your whole life, you kind of don't need anyone to model for you anymore. Because I know it so well, the human body and the dogs and everything. I don't really need them anymore. But a few years ago, I did portraits of the dogs, which is so unlike me because I never do. And people were saying, "Oh, can you do our dog?" I wouldn't be able to.
Right.
Firstly, I did them because they're the dogs I like drawing. But secondly, I know them and love them, and that's how I can draw them so tenderly because I know their souls.
Yeah.
And that's why. Yeah. So I do work from life with them.
Of course, yeah.
Sometimes.
The other work I was going to talk to you about is the work that you use with plaster. Does that sort of give different sort of opportunities than when you're working with wire? Because obviously you incorporate objects, don't you, into the plaster, which are then cast in bronze. And is that sort of is it more tactile when you're making stuff? Is it different than when you work?
It's a process of putting on plaster and taking it off. I spend as much time hammering away as I do putting it on.
Right.
So most artists work building up, but I spend most of the time, as I say, just building up, knocking it off, adding some bits. Then I finish the whole thing. Then I add more bits, and I've never liked the texture of bronze as such, the smooth texture of bronze.
Yeah.
So that's why I've always worked to make my bronzes have more texture.
Of course.
I find them more tactile. When I first started doing the bronzes, I was totally against it, but and I was being kind of encouraged by my galleries to do bronzes because they can sell more of them, obviously. And I thought, no, that's so commercial. I don't want anything to do with it. It's horrible and smooth and old-fashioned and dark green and brown bronzes. I didn't want anything to do with it. So I thought, well, if I can do it in a way that mimics my wire sculpture, maybe I will give it a go. So that's when I started sort of making the wire sculpture and then filling them with plaster, and so that they ended up having a really deep textures. And
and I know, and like you say, you add things to them, don't you, as well, and you put objects in, which is
I put objects in. A lot of the time that's for texture, but also sometimes it's relevant to that particular time. I write things in it too. I put graffiti on before the public graffiti them.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I love I love those works, and well, I mean, I'll talk to you about the show at the end, maybe about the Halifax show in particular. But obviously, people sort of, you could see people's interest in those particular works and finding the objects, and sort of the excitement of children, especially finding the objects.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing, is that when I started doing it, I had young kids.
Yeah,
and so I had an endless supply of toys.
Of course,
and broken things.
Well, it's a bit autobiographical then in that case, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It really is. And if my girls would come in the studio and help me mix plaster, I'd cast their hands and put their hands in.
Yeah, that's cool.
So and then I'd write relevant things to that year, and so each one is a kind of two-dimensional aspect to it, in the way that there'd be something else to look at on the surface, as well as the whole piece.
Yeah, it's great. It's really, I love the other one. We can talk all day about the different sort of the work that you do, and you do your mosaics, which you're actually doing, I think, something now as we're talking, but you do your mosaics, you do the wire drawings, which of course you mentioned before, which are wonderful works as well. I absolutely love those. If we could talk about maybe just a couple of quick ones with regards to specific works that I can just sort of picked out, and I think maybe this first one I think does have a bit of a story to it, so that's particular why I've mentioned it, which is the Temple to 200 Rabbits, which I think is an early work. Can you sort of talk about that and how it came about?
My because we have the farm in the south of France, it's a vineyard, but also had a farmer there who used to keep rabbits. And one day he took me, I was only about 12, he took me out into the garden and to show me his rabbits, and in this little tiny dark room, and most of them were hopping around or looking very hot and uncomfortable. Some of them were dead, some of them were mating. I mean, there were just loads of them in there, and I was so shocked, and he was so proud to show me, and I was like, oh, this feels really kind of macabre in a way, but it was such a strong impression. And it was very, very hot day. There was a tiny little window up in this room with a shard of light coming through, and it just stuck with me, that vision of these rabbits. And for years I thought, I really want to make something about that memory. And I'd been doing a few drawings and wanted to try and replicate the whole scene. And then I went to Mexico when my girls were about 3 and 5, so about 27 years ago. And is that right? Anyway, and we stayed in this village called Tepoztlan, and at the top of the village, right on the top of this hill, there was a little temple called Temple to 200 Rabbits.
Okay.
And it looked like a pyramid shape, 3 stories, and it had no rabbits to be seen, but it was called Temple to the 200 Rabbits. And Tepoztlan apparently means god of mild drunkenness.
All right.
So anyway, I thought, I'd been thinking about how many rabbits I was going to make. And then I got there and I thought, oh, well, now I'm going to have to make 200. So the next thing I did was I made a maquette of it there. I was there for 3 months, and I made it in clay in the pottery there.
Yeah.
And then once it dried, they shipped it back for me amazingly, and it didn't get broken. God, I've never seen anything packed so beautifully. It had polystyrene cut out to every single piece of it. And so then when it got back, I decided to make the life-size version. So I made 200 resin. They're actually hares. I know, because that's what I have in my head, is a vision of a hare.
Of course, yeah.
But I call them rabbits because of the title.
Yeah.
But anyway, so it's very confusing for people. So then I wanted to replicate the atmosphere in that little dark room.
Yeah.
So whenever I've shown them inside, I have them in a big, dark, low-ceilinged room with no windows.
Right.
And I tend to put just enough light that after a few minutes of standing there, you can acclimatize.
Yeah.
And walk around.
Wow.
So they took up my whole storage.
I was going to say, where are they? Where are they stored?
They're in my tennis court. We weren't using the tennis court, so we decided
right,
to use it for
that. Perfect place for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, Sophie. So now we'll talk about another piece, if that's okay. And the one that I have seen personally quite recently, which I think possibly was the first time that had been exhibited in this country as well, is Dancing Hares, which was this huge work. It's like quite central in location in the piece hall. Can you talk about that work as well? It's such a sort of joyous, expressive work, and everybody that saw it was like happy. And so, yeah, can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a theme with my work, actually, that piece. The three figures dancing, I've done it in several different mediums and scales, and now it's become the dancing ladies. And again, I'm still when I come up with an idea, I tend to thrash it out in every different type of material and scale before I've had enough, and then eventually I'll stop and I'll have finished, I'll have completed the journey for that piece.
Right. Okay.
But it is a very joyous piece, and it is one of my most popular pieces.
Is it? Right, okay. I can understand.
It's so accessible to everyone, and everyone feels happy, and there's nothing depressing about it. There's nothing too, sort of sexual about it, because particularly that one, because it's all animal, so there's no naked bodies, and and it's just been, it is, as you say, a joyous piece. And funnily enough, I mean, my career goes back a long way, but for a few years, when I started changing to be, do the figures rather than the animals, I sort of wasn't interested in my earlier work. I didn't show it for a long time. So I had all these pieces, and still have a lot of my older work that hasn't really been out there that much.
Okay.
And then after a while, I thought, actually, these are pretty good. I quite like these. So I've been showing a lot of the older work more recently, because I did a lot of huge work. I had quite a few assistants who used to just, mix plaster for me, and I had a sort of like a conveyor belt of people passing me plaster up to the scaffolding to make those pieces. And I worked sort of 16 hours a day every day. I mean, I just haven't stopped. So that's why there's so much that work out there. But with the bigger pieces, I always made them directly big. I mean, I didn't have help with scaling up or anything. I'd just make them. I'd tie them to the ceilings, and because the structures were massive, so I'd just weld a very simple frame myself and then just tie them up to the ceiling of my studio.
They must be very physically demanding, I'd imagine. Some of these, I mean, they're huge, aren't they? Some of these works. I mean, you must be drained when you make them at the end of the day.
Well, I would, and also the size of them, you'd have to stand back, so you'd have to keep running down to have a look at them from a distance, and it's exhausting, but it's nice. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah. I love the Halifax show. Like I say, we went a little while ago. I've been twice now to see it. The first time we actually went, it was on Easter Sunday itself, and everything else was like closed. Okay. Everything was closed on Easter Sunday, and I said, I really want to go in it. I rang them, and they said, yeah, we're open. I was like, oh, brilliant. So I went down, and it was amazing. It was a really sunny day, and I think your work kind of, strangely in some way as well, I don't know if this is if it's just the way it is made. I've read this and I've seen images of it. It kind of almost responds to the to the weather. Your work, it does. I think on different days and different weathers, it sort of it does the moods that sort of can. I mean, I've seen photographs of the work in the snow and in different elements and things like that, and it kind of it brings in different meanings with the works themselves, I think. But it was a gloriously sunny. It was a sunny day. You know, Peace Hall is a really nice space, and it was very busy.
Oh, amazing!
People milling around. And I think with regards to you, obviously, I was thinking of this, and I thought when you go to exhibitions and you go to the Peace Hall and you're usually there for a reason, whether you're giving a talk or you're doing or whatever, and you'll be shown around by various people and whatever. But when I went, and I was just a normal person walking around, and so I can see the most pure reaction to people of the seeing the works, and it's absolutely incredible. You know, the reaction to your work more than pretty much most other artists that I can think of, because the response from people is kind of over. Your work is so engaging. I'm not just saying that to blow your trumpet, but it just is, because it's so present, and you can't ignore these things, because it was in certainly the larger works. I mean, they're huge anyway, so they sort of, obviously that's your first sort of reaction to them, but then they respond to people no matter what their age, no matter if they're interested in art, if they're not interested in art, you know, whatever. There's different responses in some way, and I think that you've managed to achieve that is incredible. Because I took a photograph of a child. I took a photograph of, you know, the crawling hare part, and it was only afterwards that I looked at the photograph. And now I'll tell you this, whether this is actually okay or not, I don't know, but there were kids sat on the two front paws, and there was another kid leaning on the back paw, and they were just like loving it, you know. You know, it was just it was amazing. It was and I think that the joy, the interaction,
I love the fact that kids, I mean, it's a shame that when obviously the wire pieces, you can't have that kind of
course, no, not with the wire pieces,
but with the bronzes, it does rub the patinas, but I quite like it in a weird way, you know, that you can see the attention it's had when children have been stroking the little objects and they go all shiny. So it's I mean, great.
I was there and I was like looking at people, and they were sort of like picking things out and going, "Oh, look at the coins there! You've got like these like coins in the paws and things like that of them and things like that." And I'm looking around and seeing. I saw a spud gun, I think, in one of them, which I thought was brilliant. You know,
probably the piece I'm making at the moment in my studio, my grandsons came over the other day. I was roller skating around a sculpture that's in the middle of my studio, and the 7-year-old said to me, calls me Mimi, he said, "Mimi, why have you got my Pokemon dinosaur up there? Can I have it back, please?" And I said, "No, you can have it back, but not yet, because I've got to make a mold first, and then you can have it back." And it just brought back memories of when my kids were little, and I stole their Harry Potter toothbrush holder or whatever to put in a sculpture.
Well, it's quite good. It's because it's sort of like I mentioned before about like ready-mades and things like that. They're sort of like, it's really interesting that as a sort of its own dynamic that you were bringing these works into your work. It's, I think, you know, and creating sort of a strange hybrid with your work as well. It's sort of, it has its own little story, I think, of its own arc as well. You know, it's quite interesting.
Well, also the fact that like I made some torsos once, the big torsos that aren't 100 feet tall that you heard an article written about. They're actually 12 feet tall, and I made them in 2003. And just to give you an example, I've only just cast them this year because, you know, I make these big pieces, but I couldn't always afford to cast them. So I make the mold and have that. And then I can, you know, when I sell one or whatever, I can then cast it. Because, you know, they cost the same as a house, these pieces to cast. So I made that piece in plaster, and that year I did a residency, a workshop actually, at Mary Hare School for deaf kids. And they were 18-year-olds, and they were doing their A-levels, art A-level. And so I'd been working with them for a week. And at the end of the week, I said, "Do you want to come to my studio and spend a few hours there and do some graffiti on this plaster that I've been doing?" So they all came back for the day, and I let them write something on the sculpture and dig it into the plaster. And you know, years later I cast it, and some of them didn't come out because they weren't deep enough. And but then I also got a poet called Aidan Dunn who wrote some poetry about the sculpture, and then he came and engraved his poetry into it. So they've all got, there's loads of writing over them.
They all have their own stories.
They're just being cast. I mean, I cast them in resin, and I got that in my park, but I just sold one and cast it in bronze, so it's really nice finally that it's been cast.
Been done. Yeah. No, that's amazing. I mean, like I say, the Halifax show was a real treat, and I'm looking forward to whatever shows that you have on in the future as well. You know, hopefully some more up north would be perfect.
Yeah, I've got one coming up actually in Nottingham.
Oh, have you? All right.
So that's not far, is it?
That's not far.
So
No, that's good.
That's going to be at the Genogli Gallery in Nottingham,
right,
in November. I think it's November to February or something like that.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I'll look out for that. That sounds good.
And then there's one in Woking at the Lightbox Theatre in 2023.
Right. Okay.
When I turn 60, which sounds really scary, but so it's kind of 60th birthday exhibition.
you keep yourself fit, don't you? You love running, don't you? You love running.
Yeah, I run. I don't do marathons anymore because I've proved to myself that I can do one, so I don't need to do any more. And you get so badly injured all the time when you're training for a marathon that I like running too much. So I tend to not do the marathons. I just run with my dogs.
Yeah.
More so in France. We run in the forest in France, but I keep fit. I swim every day, 2 kilometers every morning. Yeah.
That's amazing. No, that's very, very
people
good.
Say, why do you do so much exercise when you work keeps you so fit? But it kind of works together. You know, you have to keep fit to do what I do.
Of course, yeah, because it is very physical, sort of the work that you're doing. Yeah. I mean, that show. So the show, at Halifax, I know it's coming down soon. That I'd imagine when it does come down, because it'll be like somebody taking the Christmas decorations down at home, I think, in the Peace Hall. It will be strange for the Peace Hall, I think, just the staff there and the people, because you know, sort of the sculptures themselves dotted around in that sort of, it'll kind of have that feeling of where they all gone.
I know. Do you know what? When we first went to see Peace Hall before COVID, I thought, oh my God, this place is enormous. How am I haven't got anything that's big enough to go here. It's just going to make everything look like the tiny little baby toys, you know. And then COVID happened, and then we went back this year to have a look just before putting the show up, and I thought actually they put more stuff there, you know, like benches and things. So I thought actually it's not that bad anymore. It doesn't look too.
It brings it in a bit,
And then I brought the work there, and it just fitted. It just looked right.
It looks great. I love the little rooms as well with the paintings and the works and stuff that you've got there.
But it's such a beautiful place. My God, I mean, the people there have been so lovely, and people from up north are just so direct. You know, people say exactly what they feel. You know, there's no messing about. It's like if they like it, they're going to tell you.
Yeah.
And they're just really. They love it, and
I think they're over the moon with it. I think they're really thrilled, and they're really sort of happy that you did it. And they work so well there in that environment, because of course I've seen them in the landscape, I've seen them in in the sculpture park and whatnot, but then seeing them in that with the buildings, it's like a scene from a Sinbad film or something, and I keep expecting them to like come alive or something. You know, it's sort of
it just feel. I love my work in an urban setting.
Right.
Actually, I always have done. I mean, I know people think, oh, they're animals, but you know, obviously they're not really, and they look right in an urban setting to me, just as good as they look in a natural setting.
Definitely, no, it suits. They work really well. I think I managed to get a copy of the book as well, while I was there, which was there was about 3 copies left of the signed book, and I think so. I managed to catch just. I don't know how many you did, but there wasn't many left when I went. So
I should have signed more.
Oh right, no, I think I was lucky to get one. So I was very happy with that. So it's got a couple of final things really. One is that with regards to your characters, I know, moving on to different characters, a more recent one has been the boar, I think. Have you got any others in mind, or is that where you are at the moment?
I'm never looking for characters, you know. I'm not thinking, oh, what shall I do next? It comes naturally. But people have always said to me, have you ever thought about doing a pig or anything? And I said, no, it's never occurred to me, never been at all interested, because I don't really do animals for animals' sake, if you know what I mean. So and then one year I was in the south of France, and the boars there, they eat a lot, 30% of the grapes. So people are really desperate to get rid of them.
Right.
So they do get shot. they go, they're hunted. And I found one dead in a vine in a vineyard, just lying there. And it was so amazing. I felt like, my God, this doesn't look like it should belong now. This looks like a prehistoric animal.
Yeah.
The head was just so vast. And in fact, the head was the same size almost as the body. Such a beautiful animal. And I immediately felt like I had to do something. So it just happened, and I've only done 2 sculptures with them and a few drawings and smaller pieces, but I definitely want to do more.
Yeah.
Because I love the shape, I love the feeling, I love the characters. I mean, pigs are unbelievably human in their intelligence, and that's important for me too.
Yeah. No, it's good. I know. I'm just trying to think. Other things that have happened sort of more recently. The Minotaur and Hare bench has gone into, is it Wood Wharf? I think in London. Has it gone?
Canary Wharf, yeah.
In Canary Wharf, there, yeah. That's quite nice. I love that little child's bench that you've made next to it. That's great.
Yeah. Well, funnily enough, when I first made the Minotaur and Hare, before it got sent to Cheltenham and it stayed in Cheltenham, the first cast, it actually went to Canary Wharf.
Right.
So way before, as it had just been made, it was installed there for an exhibition.
Ah, right.
So years later, they asked for it back. And the little bench was because the place where it's been installed is in the place where they read stories to children.
Yeah.
So I said, well, why don't I make a little bench the same as the bench that the Minotaur and Hare are sitting on, that the children can sit on. So I'd copied my bench in miniature for little people to sit on. And I put funny objects in it, like little things for them to play with and look at. And I cast a mobile phone and a few coins, and I put them flat on the bench so it looks like they're just on there. So when they're rubbed by the kids, they'll start looking like real coins and things that they'll be trying to pick them off.
That's good.
But it's actually cast into the bench.
Yeah, that's clever. No, I like that. That's very nice. It's nice to get work, I suppose, in public spaces, isn't it, as well? That.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Getting reactions.
So nice. I mean, in England, we don't have enough of that. In Europe, there's sculpture everywhere.
Yeah.
Every town. In Pietrasanta, where I also cast bronzes, it's in Italy near Carrara. There is sculpture on every street corner.
Is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, not over here.
It's just normal. It's just a normal thing to have.
Right.
It's not anything, and they don't get vandalized.
That's the concern, isn't it? Of course, it's things getting vandalized. That can be that's the problem, isn't it? I suppose in many ways. But it's amazing to speak to you today, Sophie. I've really enjoyed it. It's been it was funny because it was when I was actually at the Halifax exhibition for the first time. I'd messaged you not long before that exhibition to ask you about the podcast and everything, and it was just so strange. I was in the one of the rooms there at the Peace Hall, looking at your I think one of the dogs, actually, one of the drawings of the dogs, and my phone pinged, and it was a message from you. It was like saying, yes, we sort of like agreed and everything to do the podcast, and it was just kind of. So I actually took a selfie of myself to sort of show you that I wasn't just lying.
I remember.
I'm actually at your show now, right now. It's
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's like surreal. Yeah, but there you go. But it's so I think it was meant to be to be honest with you. Eventually, this podcast has come to you via a trip to Italy, some technical things.
Well, that trip to Italy was so last minute, and then I thought there isn't anything happening. Is there? I can't remember. No. It was the only ticket left, and I thought, okay, I'm going.
No, it's brilliant. Whereabouts in Italy is it? Where do you go?
She's in Milan.
Milan. So, oh wow, very nice. Yeah, very nice.
I went to see some mosaic floors. In fact, I went to a studio there, mosaic studio.
Right.
I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know who the guy was or anything. I just Googled mosaic.
All right.
Milan. And I went there, and I've taught myself to speak Italian because I use the foundry in Italy, so I speak fluent Italian now.
Oh, God.
It's quite useful. And I went to this guy's studio, and he was in his 70s, and he'd been doing mosaics for like 50 years. And it was so incredible. I only just made it my flight from having gone there, my flight back to England, but he had a studio full of mosaics and full of mosaic pieces. It was like a sweetie shop. It was once you get hooked on something like mosaic or tapestry or whatever, I get kind of obsessive about things. You get just seeing these like boxes and boxes of beautiful marble.
Oh, wow.
Every single color under the sun. And he said he used to have assistants, like 10 assistants.
Really?
He was just on his own now because he's retired. He said, I still work because I love it. But he didn't have any assistants anymore. But he's done mosaics for cathedrals and for Giorgio Armani and for amazing.
Well, you just turned up.
I just turned up, and I didn't really know what to say because you don't just turn. I thought it was like a factory more, where they were making commissions for people. But it probably was a while ago. But it was just him and all these tables with mosaics on, and he was so generous with his information. And
that's lovely.
I said, I do mosaics too, and I felt a bit embarrassed saying it because his was so much more professional than mine. I mean, mine are artistic and all that, but his are just like absolutely perfect, beautiful mosaics. Really, he'd been to university to study, because in Italy, if you do something like that, you can't be labelled as a mosaic artist unless you've been at university studying it. You have to get taught. And so he said, so where did you train to do mosaics? And I said, I didn't. I just taught myself. And he was like, oh, okay. And then I tried to show him my mosaics, thinking, slightly embarrassed at showing him mine. And he kind of looked for 2 seconds and then looked away and carried on talking. He was so not interested in looking at my mosaics. It was quite funny because obviously I was doing them all kind of wrong. And he said, "Oh, you're doing them in such large scale on a piece of paper like that?" And I was like, "Oh God, really embarrassing."
But I learned a lot. Story. I bet it was worth going for that, wasn't it? Just to go and see. It
was worth going. Yeah, it was great.
Well done. Right, well, I'll let you crack on now, Sophie, with your mosaics and whatever else you're doing this weekend. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Nice talking to you.
It's been brilliant, and hopefully I'll see you soon, and I'll try and get to the show in Nottingham. I don't know if there's going to be a preview or anything like that.
No, I'm sure there will be, but I'll let you know.
Yeah, keep me posted, and all right. We'll take care and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony.
All the best. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
I hope that you enjoyed that episode. You might have worked out that the interview was recorded just prior to Sophie's Peace Hall exhibition finishing. Well, it has finished now, but I'll keep you posted on the Northern Art social media pages for any future shows, especially the upcoming Nottingham exhibition we talked about. Sophie is on Instagram, so give her a follow on there too. Search for Sophie Ryder Artist. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. As usual, I'll post some images relating to the episode on the Northern Art Facebook page and on the Instagram page too. Any likes, comments, shares, messages, follows, anything like that is very much appreciated. You can also subscribe to the channel on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts, and then you won't miss out on any episodes I upload in the future.